We have big changes ahead with the first fall front in the extended range, and then a complete pattern flip as we head into October. So let's dive into the details. Take a look at the first week of September because we got plenty of heat on the way. So there's that ridge of high pressure that really starts to come back across the middle of the country and just lights up. We're going to be seeing anomalies 5 to 10 degrees at least above average in the middle of the country. This is all complements of Idalia and Franklin headed off into the open waters, but that's the dry air is left behind on the backside. Dry air cools quick, but it also heats up quick in the afternoon, and that's exactly what's going to be happening, especially in the middle of the country, while much of the western regions experience some really nice, pleasant conditions across a good part of California, back into Nevada, as well as into Idaho, and even into Utah should be feeling pretty comfortable. Even portions of Arizona could sneak into the action and see some least comfortable like air. And as far as the precipitation front, here's where we stand going into that first week of September. So we've got these little storm systems down further to the south. This is called kind of an easterly wave that could sneak across and actually bring some much needed rain. These areas do need some rainfall across portions of Louisiana, back into Arkansas, especially into portions of Missouri, but definitely out west where the trough is. That's where we're going to be seeing the most significant rain, at least through the first week, especially out in our western regions, while much of the central plains and much of the middle of the country under that ridge of high pressure continues to remain high and dry. And as we extend into the second week of September, we kind of see the same thing, right? I mean, we're going to be seeing the first half of September well above average. We got a pretty massive heat dome coming, and that's pretty much going to be locked in for a good part of the country. But again, most of the areas out west are going to continue to remain on the below average side. Even a good part of Alaska still gets in the action with those below average temperatures. And the rain prospects look pretty slim as well. So it looks overall fairly dry, especially across the south, the southern plains, and especially across the middle of the country, as you're pretty much going to be dominant under that ridge of high pressure. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and definitely help me reach 200,000 subscribers. That is my goal by the end of the year, and you can do so by subscribing to the channel and get all my daily breakdowns going forward. So let's take a look at the setup, because we are seeing a little bit of an interesting twist and a little bit of a change, especially starting in the teleconnections as we head towards the middle of the month. So this is your Arctic oscillation on the ensemble guidance, folks, and where you can see it's definitely positive under that ridge of high pressure. But as we trend towards the middle of the month, we're starting to see it turn negative, and that's an indicative of the jet stream starting to lower a little bit. This is kind of the transition. I mean, remember, fall technically starts on the 23rd of the month, so it's pretty normal to see, you know, some of these lower height anomalies trending further south, and I do feel it's going to be a very warm overall September. So this change is probably going to be late in the game, late in September, as I'm kind of about to show you. And here's your negative oscillation, kind of implying the same thing. So we're starting to see a little bit of a dip and a change, and at least starting in the second half of September. And I think the really flip happens going into October. So there's your P&A as well. So you can definitely see it's pretty negative for the first half of September, but it definitely starts to trend positive as well. So that's a flip in itself. Areas out west are going to start to warm up. So I do feel a good part of the southern plains as we head into that 15th through the 20th time frame, we're going to start to see at least the ridge start to back off, right? I think you still have a chance at least seeing some triple digits through the first half of September. But once we head, you know, that third week, I do feel the ridge is going to be starting to back off back to the desert southwest. And at least I think you could probably say goodbye to the triple digits, at least, you know, for a good part of the southern plains. But we are going to be seeing a little bit of a dip, complements of that you know, negative AO and the negative NAO. You know, up here in the Great Lakes region, and up here in the portions of the Ohio Valley, I think these areas are going to start cooling off. And by the time we look at the 22nd, so this is the big change, going into that 22nd. This is kind of right around that first day of fall, right? We've got a pretty significant trough coming into the Great Plains region, but also at the same time, we've got this southern branch. Now, this is a pretty dynamic system going to be setting up shop off the West Coast. I do feel this is going to be the culprit that's going to be ending the heat wave down in the south. So we're going to have to wait till 3 weeks. But I do feel that's going to be the mechanism that's going to be putting the squash on the heat wave and at least saying goodbye to the triple digits and, seeing somewhat closer to, even slightly above average they'll take instead of the 5 to 10 degrees above average, which they normally have been getting really all summer long. But the big change is going to be coming up here into the Great Lakes regions, across the Midwest regions, through the Mid-Atlantic states. I do feel we're going to have several fairly decent dips in the jet stream on the 23rd, and another one by the end of the month. So if you look at the overall view and as far as the height anomalies, as we head towards that 20th and through the 25th time frame, we're definitely starting to see there's no more red, right? There's no more red starting to show up on the map down here in the south, right? So that's the squash, right? That you can finally say, hey, the dominant heat is finally kind of be losing its grip a little bit, as you'll start to see lower height anomalies drift from the north. And that's the beginning stages of some subtle changes that lie ahead. And there's the colder air mass dipping down for that first day of fall, right? So we're starting to see these cooler anomalies start to dip down for low temperatures in the 40s, if not in the 30s, across a good part of Iowa, back into Illinois, back through portions of Indiana and Ohio, and those regions down through Kentucky. Will be waking up with definitely some cooler air mass coming in for September standards, as that cold air will continue to funnel. And I do think it has a reinforcing shot as we head towards the end of the month through September, as we reinforce that colder air mass well into the 30s across these regions. I can't even roll out some of these areas seeing their first frost of the season in some isolated spots. And so if we take a look at what happened last year, this is again, it's not like it's that abnormal. This is the temperatures, what it looked like last year on September the 29th. So we're seeing that colder shot, this year, but it was actually even colder last year. So we woke up with temperatures in the 20s back, that time last year, back into Minnesota, through Wisconsin, through the Great Lakes region. So yes, all signs point to a well above average September, and much warmer than it was actually, this time last year. And this is the latest update from the Climate Prediction Center. Kind of highlights what we've been saying, with the well above average, especially the first half of September. We'll start to see subtle changes into that second half. But overall, a good part of the middle of the country is going to be, well above average, with continued heat continued building across a good part of the south. But I do feel subtle changes are going to start to take place, especially that third week and fourth week. But when we go into that first week of October, that's when more of the drastic changes happen. Remember that trough that came in on the 23rd off the West Coast? I think that's going to be the mechanism that's going to be setting the tone, and with the steering flow coming off the Eastern Pacific. So we're still going to have very active Eastern Pacific storms, right? So we're still going to have a conveyor belt of systems. But what's going to happen is as the jet stream gets a lot stronger off here, the southern branch, it's going to put a brake to a lot of these systems that will not now are just continuing off the west. When that happens, that reverses course and they have a recurve in the setup. So I do feel that's going to make the transition as we head into that first week or two of October. And that's going to bring some bigger rains through these areas, through portions of Baja California, through Mexico. And that will start the dramatic change into Texas, through Oklahoma, through Kansas, through, Colorado, as we'll start to see a more of a northwest flow component, as well as the teleconnections start to dip. We'll have more of that northwest flow and a colder flow from the north So overall, we'll start to see a lot lower height anomalies and a lot lower pressures as we'll start to see some of these colder air mass, more successful cold shots, as the ridge will be finally gone by then. This is your first weekend two in October. So it's probably going to take at least through then. We see subtle changes around the first day of fall, around that time frame, a reinforcing shot at the end of September. But the big shift really starts to unfold across the first week of October, and then really elevates as we head into that second week of October with the southern jet stream a lot more active. You can see it's definitely going to be a lot more active further to the south. We're going to have lower height anomalies and lower pressures across the north, and that's going to be setting the stage for more opportunities for cold shots getting a little bit further south as well. So I think a lot of these areas across the middle of the country will be replaced with a lot of cooler anomalies by then, with right now they're experiencing, or going to experience at least for another couple of weeks, seeing well above average temperatures. But relief is going to be on the way, but we just got to wait at least a couple more weeks to kind of see the subtle changes in the big pattern flip that will be ahead. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update where I protect you before and after storm.